Hi, this is Brandon Smiley from thirstgym.com. I recently posted on my Instagram account some questions that you would want me to answer, and I was going to put them in like a Q&A style format or things that you wanted demonstrated. We got a good list of some stuff here that we're going to try to make some videos and demo and coach between my wife, myself, and my intern, or maybe even the athletes that we have in that would be willing to actually let us get it on camera. But I also got some questions that are good for me just to be able to sit down and talk about and provide some information. So I will get to these and we'll kind of see what we can do. If you have any other questions, you can either leave them on my Instagram, you can shoot me an email, you can go to my website, just go to thirstgym.com, go to contact, and it'll bounce to my email. You can ask a question there. And I'll try to do these every so frequently, so long that I have enough questions that I can kind of put into one video, because I'm going to try to keep these around the 10-minute time frame, give or take if I can. So one of the first questions, I will probably also do this one with a demo as well as a separate video, but I can also talk about it. I think it's one that's worth talking about. This comes from Logan Pasker on Instagram. He says, teaching athletes how to jump or approach jump. I'm assuming, different ways. I'm not sure if he actually means how to approach the jump or if he actually means an approach jump, but I'll kind of take it either way. He says, it doesn't come naturally for some. Yeah, you're right that for some kids, running, jumping, skipping, throwing, it's not very easy. You can tell that they're, I don't want to say sheltered, but they're not outside playing sports as much as your typical kid. And so when it comes to teaching how to jump, we actually, depending upon the kid, whenever we do our screenings and I watch them, we vertical jump test every kid, whether we actually need to or not. The thing I like about it is I'm going to watch a kid give a good amount of effort to jump as high as they can, and that's going to let me look at jumping and landing mechanics, right? So whenever we do that, that kind of lets me know where I want to start a kid. Some kids have really bad landing mechanics. Sometimes I will honestly just start them off with a very small depth drop, just so that we can learn how to approach and stick the landing, keep the hips high, make sure that we're loading the glutes and the hamstrings, and we stay in a good athletic position. And some kids are like, this kind of seems so redundant, like I'm just stepping off a box and I'm just landing. But after doing that for about 4 weeks and trying to progress the height a little bit to where it actually kind of comes to a challenge and say, hey, we got to keep your butt at a certain level. We can't let our butt tank down. Got to land in that good athletic position. Let's make sure we're not just crashing on the ground. Let's try to control that landing a little bit. Then when you go back to actually doing a box jump, you might actually find that they load their hips better. They get their hips down to where they're supposed to be, and then they go. You can also do a separate approach where we just start with triple extension. Hands are up high, and then we bring them down and try to stick that landing. Same thing. It's a very similar concept, but you're not actually stepping off a box. I just like that small depth drop because it actually gives them real-time feedback of what's actually going to happen a little bit in the sport, and that's worked relatively well for us. So hopefully that answers your question there. Brewer 63 Jacob, so I'm guessing that's Jacob Brewer. He said, good stretches for powerlifters pre or post workout or just general maintenance, static or dynamic. So warm up in terms of getting ready to train, definitely want dynamic more than static. If you static stretch anything, I would say that it's probably going to be your hip flexors or your psoas, and that's probably going to be it. Everything else needs to be dynamic. And the only reason I say that for the hip flexors is if you're somebody that sits for a long time and you don't have an active job, you're actually sitting at a desk for most of your day, students, things like that, just getting that muscle to lengthen out a little bit, it might help you just move better in general. So I think that's a good approach for just that muscle. Otherwise, you can do anything from like toe touches and zombie walks, expand walks, different shoulder mobility exercises, and things like that. Personally, for myself, when it comes to powerlifters, I think some of the best thing you can do is just actually small accessory exercises, and then specific warm-ups that you might need. So if you have a hard time getting your hands back behind the bar, then you might want to do some pec mobilizations or something like that. Or if you have really tight hamstrings, you might actually do some of that hip flexor stuff and then do some like leg lowering for your hamstrings. And then, you can do some slight soft tissue work to warm up if you feel like you need it. But for the powerlifters, I'm not really gung-ho on that because you kind of need to be able to warm up in like a warm-up room from a powerlifting meet perspective, then you're not going to have access to all that fancy stuff that you used to probably having at home. And you could be short on time. So, just doing simple things like press downs, curls, lateral raises, some push-ups, some lat pull downs, some dumbbell rows, chest supported rows for your legs, lunges, body weight squats, some really light RDLs. You can push the prowler or sled around a little bit, some light reverse hyper, standing abs. If you're on the stronger end, you can do a couple reps of glute ham raises. Otherwise, you can do leg curls, leg extensions, or warm your knees up, get the muscles going. It's kind of up to you, but to me, that's a good way to actually warm up. From a mobility perspective, it's going to just depend upon what you have going on. YouTube's a great thing for that, and trying to find stuff like that. Another question comes from my buddy Chase Carnes, and he asks, what's my current approach to core training? I read it years ago on Elite FTS. Curious if it's changed any. I can't even remember what I wrote on Elite FTS. It was probably a long time ago in the old legacy logs, so I have to go back and look and see because I don't remember. But I'd be willing to bet that it has changed. From a clientele perspective, we do it every single day. For myself, it's most days. There's some days that I skip it. Generally our approach here at Thirst is with bracing mechanics more than anything else. So we're using dead bugs, wall press abs, carries, planks, pallet holds, hollow holds, things that have us trying to resist motion. That doesn't mean that we don't do some flexion and extension. We're heavy on reverse hypers here, as long as the kid's old enough. We are very big on hanging leg raises or like the Roman chair leg raises. And then we're also big on like pallet presses. That's actually moving, even though there's some resistance there. Half kneeling lifts and chops are also another thing we're really big on. So I would say that from an athletic standpoint, we kind of look at what does the athlete need. If they're a rotational athlete, we need to be able to work on some rotation component, but also resisting rotation. If they are, a swimmer, we're going to make sure that we're training hip flexion and extension, so we've got to do some hip flexion for abdominal work. It just really depends on the athlete. But generally speaking, we're trying to stick with basics for most of these kids. And we try to use things where they're preferably on their back because they get feedback from the ground, whether their spine is neutral or not. And for a lot of kids, that sensory feedback is huge into letting them know whether they're doing the exercise correct or not. For myself, I generally, on lower body days, like to kind of do flexion work. So leg raises and standing abs or sit-ups off the glute ham. Maybe some kind of like mountain climber, so to speak. And then for my upper body days, if I do it, I like to do generally some kind of oblique-based exercise. So again, carries, lifts, chops, pallet holds, things like that. And then usually on my second lower body day, I will do like an anti-flexion extension. So that's where you'll see the planks, the ab real rollouts, and things of that nature. And then more obliques on the other upper body day. So I usually stick with 2 upper, 2 lower. Sometimes I have a third upper, and I usually just pick 1 to 2 of the upper body days, do my oblique stuff, and I usually do abs every day on the lower body. So that's a good question, but like I said, I'm pretty sure it has changed. This question comes from Jay Hegg. He asks, dynamic warm-ups specifically for sumo deads, adding them during my off-season. I would definitely say a tripod adductor mobilization. Look that up on YouTube. You'll find it. I think that's one of the best things for your adductors. I think another thing that you can do is typical leg swings. Don't forget the simple stuff like that. That works really well. Also, people call them yes and no's, good girls, bad girls, but basically abduction and adduction of your hip with like a mini band. Donnie Thompson's got some stuff that you can do as well. I think he calls them groiners. You can do those. I think that's good stuff to warm your hips up and get you ready to train for sumo. If you have access to a belt squat or a pit shark, belt squat marching is another great thing to warm your hips up and build your hips up a little bit prior to getting into sumo pulls. And then basically from there, I mean, it's kind of up to you. As long as you get your adductors and your hips warmed up and being ready to be wide, considering I'm assuming you pull conventional, that would be the route that I would go with that. Another question comes from SBUT55, and he says, I have a squat day and a deadlift day. Which day should I do good mornings on? Personally, I think you should do it on deadlift day, more so than your squat day. In my experience, the good morning has helped build the deadlift better than it builds the squat. I think the older ways of where people would try to do good mornings for the max effort method kind of start putting them on squat days and say, hey, let's help you squat. Assuming that your back is a big weak point, maybe it will, but I think that overall the position carries over better to the deadlift considering it is a hinge-based movement. So specifically, I think the safety squat bar, cambered bar good mornings are the superior option to use to train, not only for better shoulder health in the long run, but just the loading mechanics makes it much harder, so you're going to have to use less weight, which gives you a little more bang for your buck. And it also helps prevent rounding of the upper back because you've got to resist that with those bars. But with a straight bar, you don't have to. You can get some, you can get some rounding in the mid back with a straight bar and get away with it. And with a safety bar, a cambered bar, you're gonna eat it pretty hard. So I would personally put it on my deadlift day, and it'd be your supplemental movement, and you would do 3 to 5 sets of 5 to 8 reps. I think that's pretty good. You could do up sets of 10, but sets of 10 on RDLs just sounds pretty miserable. I'm sorry, on good morning sounds pretty miserable. Boom Cannon 44 asks, are there days you miss bodybuilding? I still train like a bodybuilder quite a bit for the most part. In terms of actually like doing a competition, not really. I don't miss the dieting aspect of it. I don't miss the being tan, the meal preparation that goes into that. I don't miss that at all. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to do another one again in the future. I've definitely highly considered it. It's definitely something I think I do want to do before I say, I'm done competing in everything at some point in my life. I'm at a good age that I think I can go off and do well. I know that I have pretty blessed genetics, at least what I have. I'm not from my parents by any means. I don't know where they came from, but I have good round muscle bellies, and I have very short levers, so it makes me look a lot bigger than I probably actually really am. And I respond really well to volume, so I can train relatively hard, relatively frequently, and recover from it, and that tends itself to be good for bodybuilding competitions. So no, I don't miss it a lot, really much at all, but I do know that I want to do another one or two before I'm completely done. And First Class Muscle asked about banded dead bugs. I'm going to make a video specifically on that exercise and show how we do that and how we coach it and how we program it. So that looks like all the questions I have for this particular video. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section of the video. Like I said, you can get a hold of me at thirstgym.com. You can DM me on Instagram, and I'll try to maybe do these, every couple weeks, maybe once a month or something like that, because I know that this formal sit-down way is a good way for me to answer a lot of questions that I'm not limited by that really crappy time with the Q&As that I do on Saturdays. So I also do my AMAs or Q&As on Saturdays, usually around 8 to 9 a.m. Some days I forget to actually put the little sticker up on my Instagram story, so if I forget, it might be a little bit later. But definitely use that opportunity as well as a chance to ask questions. If you think I can help you, if I don't know how to answer it, I'll just recommend where you can go to get help, or at least have an idea of where you can go to get help. But thanks again. Like I said, if you need anything, visit thirstgym.com. Thanks. Have a great day.